My name is Anton, and I used to believe that if you loved someone hard enough, you could outlast the little cracks. It sounds naive now, but back then it felt practical, like patching a roof before the rain came. I thought marriages were mostly maintenance, tighten the bolts, sweep the corners, replace the filter before the whole system wheezed itself into a breakdown. So when my wife, Harper, started talking about her brother's destination wedding in Kyoto, I treated it like a project. Dates, flights, hotels, clothes, a gift. I made lists in the notes app I pretended not to rely on. I asked her, twice, if she wanted me to book everything so we wouldn't scramble last minute. No, she said, smiling like it was sweet that I was worried. I've got it. It'll be romantic. We'll make a whole thing of it. Romantic. A whole thing. Kyoto, in late spring, sounded like a postcard someone had edited just a little too bright. Harper's brother, Sean, was marrying a woman named Sakura, a name that, for reasons I couldn't articulate, always sounded like a silk scarf. Harper spoke about Sakura the way you talk about a neighbor you envy and disapprove of at the same time. The compliments were always edged. She's so polished. She's very confident. She has a way of making everything about her without even trying. The truth was, Harper's family ran on an unspoken hierarchy: who called whom first, who got invited to which dinner, who sat near whom at weddings, whose achievements were to be admired and whose were to be minimized. I'd stepped into it slowly over the years, like a man wading into cold water, telling himself the numbness would pass. It didn't pass. I just got used to it. Still, a wedding is a wedding. You show up. You smile. You clap. You take photos that will haunt you later, because you'll look at them and realize you were acting. 2 weeks before we were supposed to leave, I started to feel the hum of travel anxiety. I packed mentally before I packed physically. I moved through my days with that quiet sense of counting down. I caught myself looking at the calendar in the kitchen more often than necessary, the one Harper insisted on keeping because she liked seeing the month laid out. One morning, I noticed the dates were circled in pale peach marker, and beside them she'd written, Kyoto, wedding week. No us. No we. Just his name. Her brother. As if the trip was a straight line between her and her family, and I was a possible accessory, like a jacket she might choose based on weather. I told myself not to read into it. The night everything changed began like any other Thursday. The soft blue of dusk settling outside the living room windows, the clink of dishes as I loaded the dishwasher, the low murmur of whatever show Harper had chosen because she liked background noise. I remember the smell of her shampoo when she walked past me, freshly showered, wearing an oversized sweatshirt that used to belong to me. She stopped behind my chair, laid her hands on my shoulders, and squeezed gently. You're tense, she said. I'm fine, I answered, because I wanted it to be true. You've been preoccupied, she said, leaning down to kiss my temple. Is it work? It's not work. I expected her to ask what it was, but she didn't. She moved away and picked up her phone. The blue light reflected on her face for a moment like water. I dried my hands on a dish towel and watched her. She was scrolling, thumb moving with the effortless speed of someone who lived inside her screen. Did you get the confirmations for Kyoto? I asked, trying to make my voice casual, the way you say something when you don't want it to become a thing. Harper didn't look up right away. What airline did we end up with? I asked. She paused. I need to check. I did it a while ago. Okay, I said, and waited. When she still didn't move, I tried again. Do you have the itinerary? I was thinking about the seats. I'd like an aisle, if possible. This time she looked at me, and her smile came a fraction late, like someone remembering a line. Oh, she said. Right. The word landed softly. Right. As if I'd reminded her of something small, like paying a parking ticket. She tapped her phone screen. Her nails were short and neat, a pale neutral color. The kind of manicure that suggests someone expects their hands to be seen. Then she frowned. A small, careful frown. What? I asked. Hold on. She turned her phone slightly away from me, which was not a dramatic motion, but it was a motion. A choice. I felt something tighten in my chest. The kind of tension that isn't quite fear yet, but knows fear's address. Harper's frown deepened. That's weird. What's weird? She made a soft sound in her throat and started tapping faster, as if urgency could be solved by speed. Okay, she said, and took a breath that sounded practiced. So, it looks like your ticket didn't go through. I blinked at her. My ticket? Yeah. She nodded quickly. Too quickly. The payment must have declined or something. Or maybe the booking didn't finalize. I swear I did it. I stared at her face, searching for something. Surprise. Confusion. Real worry. What I found was a careful composure. Not cold. Not warm. Controlled. I didn't get any email, I said, because that was the first practical fact my brain could grab. I know, she said. I thought it was in your spam. But I checked the airline portal and it's not there. There's only mine. Only mine. It was such a small phrase, but it opened like a trapdoor. When did you notice this? I asked. Just now, she said immediately. When you asked. I watched her eyes as she spoke. People say you can tell when someone lies by whether they look away. I've learned it's not that simple. Some liars hold eye contact like a weapon. Some honest people look away because they're anxious. The only thing that matters is the person in front of you, what they normally do, and how they behave when the truth is inconvenient. Harper normally spoke like she was always mid-performance, pleasant, polished, with little touches of humor. Tonight her voice had an edge of irritation, as if my question had created the problem. Okay, I said slowly. So, what do we do? She shrugged, a tiny lift of her shoulders. I mean, it's pretty last minute. It's 2 weeks, I said. She tilted her head, as if I was being difficult. Flights are expensive now. And everything's booked. The hotel is in my name because I did the reservation with Sean's planner, so it's complicated. The hotel. Of course. I can book my own flight, I said. It's fine. I'll just. Anton, she said, and my name sounded like a warning. It's not just the flight. It's the timing. The transfers. The itinerary. The wedding events. Sean's already stressed. I don't want to add chaos. Add chaos. I tasted the phrase. It was the kind of language that made other people's behavior sound like a natural disaster. As if my presence was a storm cloud hovering over her family's carefully arranged celebration. I'm your husband, I said quietly. I know, she said, too quickly again. I know. This isn't personal. And that was the moment, right there, that my body understood before my mind did. It was personal. Maybe it had always been personal. Maybe I'd just been slow to admit it. Harper walked over and sat beside me on the couch, turning her body toward mine the way she did when she wanted to appear intimate. She placed her hand on my knee. Listen, she said, voice softer now. I'll talk to Sean. Maybe we can figure something out. But if we can't, I need you to be okay. This is his wedding. I can't miss it. I nodded, because nodding was easier than speaking. Harper squeezed my knee again, then stood. I'm going to bed. I've got an early call. She kissed my forehead like I was a child. Then she left, and the hallway light swallowed her. I stayed on the couch with the television still murmuring, the dishwasher humming in the kitchen, the quiet sensation of something slipping out from under me. I told myself not to react yet. I told myself there was still a chance it was an accident. But the calm part of my mind, the part that loved lists, that noticed the circled calendar dates, that cataloged patterns, was already assembling evidence. When Harper's door clicked closed, I waited. Not because I planned anything. Not because I was plotting. Simply because my body wouldn't let me move into sleep with that unsettled feeling in my ribs. The apartment felt different at night. The familiar shapes became watchful silhouettes. The fridge's small intermittent were sounded like a breath. The city outside our windows was a distant hiss. I sat for a while, staring at my own hands, turning them over as if I could find the answer in the lines of my palm. Then I stood and walked down the hallway. Harper's phone was on her nightstand, face down. Charging. I wasn't proud of what I did next, but pride wasn't the emotion driving me. It was clarity. It was the need to know whether I was still living inside the same reality as my wife. Harper had always insisted on a shared passcode policy, no secrets, which had felt like trust at the time. Now it felt like a trap she forgot she'd built. I picked up the phone. The screen lit up. I typed the code. It opened. I expected to feel a rush of guilt. Instead, I felt something like numbness, like my mind had decided this wasn't betrayal, it was inspection. Like checking a smoke detector after you smell burning. I went to her messages. Most of them were normal, a coworker asking about a meeting, her mother sending a photo of a floral centerpiece, Sean's name appearing here and there in the wedding logistics. Then I saw it. A group chat name with a little airplane emoji and a cherry blossom, Kyoto bridal party, airplane emoji, cherry blossom emoji. It had Harper, Sean, Sakura, Harper's mother, and two of Sakura's friends I vaguely recognized from holiday gatherings. I tapped it. At first it looked like ordinary planning chatter, flight times, dress codes, restaurant reservations. Then my eyes caught a message from Harper, sent 3 nights ago. Harper, I think it's easier if Anton doesn't come. Just for this trip. My throat went dry. Sean, are you sure? Harper, yes. It'll avoid tension. You know how he gets when he feels like an outsider. Sakura, honestly, thank you. We're trying to keep things calm. Harper, exactly. I'll tell him something went wrong with the booking. He won't make a scene. Her mother, probably for the best. This weekend should be about family. There it was. Not a mistake. Not an accident. A choice. A plan. My name on her screen felt like a smear. I stared at the words until they blurred. The quiet of the bedroom pressed into my ears. Harper's breathing was steady, unbothered. She slept like someone who believed the world would arrange itself around her. In that moment, something inside me detached. Not dramatically. Not with anger exploding like a movie scene. It was quieter than that. Like a thread snapping in a place no one could see. I set the phone back down exactly where it had been, face down, charging. I adjusted it to the same angle. I stepped backward. In the hallway, I leaned against the wall and closed my eyes. My mind tried to supply excuses. Maybe she panicked. Maybe her family pressured her. Maybe she thought she was protecting me from discomfort. But the words on the screen were too clear. He won't make a scene. She believed my presence was a scene. She believed my pain was an inconvenience. And she believed I would accept it. I went back to the couch and sat down again. The television was still on, now playing something I wasn't watching. I turned it off. In the sudden silence, I could hear the subtle tick of the kitchen clock. I sat there with my hands folded, as if I was waiting for instructions. The truth is, my body wanted to do something fast. Something sharp. Slam a door. Wake her up. Demand explanations. Let anger make the choices so I wouldn't have to. But the slower part of me, the part that had held this marriage together with careful patience, took a breath and decided something else. If she had chosen to erase me, I would let her believe she succeeded. And then I would step out of the life she'd been using me to support. I stayed up for a long time that night, not moving much, just thinking. The way you think when you're trying to keep your heart quiet so your mind can work. My marriage to Harper had always had an imbalance I pretended not to notice. I was the one who handled the bills on time. I was the one who remembered her mother's birthday. I was the one who scheduled the dentist appointments and got the oil changes and booked the flights when we traveled together. Harper had charm. She had social grace. She had a way of making people want to like her. But she didn't have consistency. Or maybe she did, and I'd mistaken it for something else. We had joint accounts, because that's what married people do, and because Harper liked the idea of shared everything. But in practice, my paycheck was the spine of our shared life. Harper worked too, but her income flowed like water, sometimes there, sometimes diverted into things she wanted. A new coat. A weekend spa. An expensive candle that smelled like cedar and expectation. I didn't resent it. I told myself we balanced each other. I was the steady one. She was the bright one. Now, in the dark living room, I realized she'd been using that balance like leverage. I stood and walked into my small home office, the one Harper called my little cave. I turned on the desk lamp. Its warm circle of light felt like safety. I opened my laptop. I didn't do anything dramatic. I didn't search how to ruin your spouse's life or anything theatrical. I did what I always did when I was scared. I started documenting. I pulled up our bank accounts. I downloaded statements. I saved them in a folder with a simple name, Financials. I checked our credit cards. I noted which were in my name, which were joint, which had authorized users. I noticed, with a sinking clarity, how many times Harper's charges appeared as everyday necessities, and how often those necessities were luxury brands. I made another folder, Communications. Then I opened my email and searched for travel confirmations. There was nothing for Kyoto. Nothing for flights, nothing for hotels, nothing even half-finished. I searched my inbox, spam, trash, everything. No confirmation. No error. No payment failed notice. If it had failed, there would have been something, a pending charge, an error email, a hold, anything. That's when it stopped feeling like a mistake. Harper hadn't attempted to book anything for me. She hadn't even tried. I sat back in my chair and stared at the wall for a while. The calmness I felt wasn't peace. It was a kind of focus. The steady breath you take when you're about to lift something heavy and you need your muscles to cooperate. In the morning, I woke up at my usual time, made coffee, and moved through our routine as if nothing had happened. Harper emerged from the bedroom wearing a robe, hair damp, looking refreshed. "Morning," she said, like we were ordinary. "Morning," I said back. She poured herself coffee and leaned against the counter. "About Kyoto. I'm going to talk to Sean today. We'll see if there's anything we can do." "Okay," I said. My voice sounded normal. That surprised me. Harper studied me for a moment, as if she expected resistance. When I didn't give it, her shoulders relaxed. "Thank you," she said, and the gratitude in her voice wasn't for my patience. It was for my compliance. I nodded. "Of course." The day unfolded in quiet domestic scenes. Work emails. Meetings. A quick lunch at my desk. Harper taking a call in the other room, laughing lightly in that social way she had. I listened without meaning to. "Yeah, I know," she said. "No, he doesn't know yet. I told him it didn't go through. He's disappointed, but he'll be fine." She was speaking to someone, and the casualness of her tone made my stomach feel hollow. Not furious, just hollow. Like my emotions had been scooped out and replaced with air. That night, Harper ordered takeout and tried to be affectionate, curling her legs under herself on the couch, resting her head on my shoulder. "I feel bad," she murmured. "I do." I said. She tilted her head up to look at me. Are you mad at me? I wanted to say yes. I wanted to say, I saw the group chat. I wanted to say, you planned to exclude me like I was a stain you needed to bleach out of family photos. Instead, I took a slow breath. No, I said gently. I'm not mad. Harper smiled, relieved, and returned her head to my shoulder. In that moment, I realized something important. The version of me she believed in was a tool. A man who would absorb humiliation quietly so she could keep her life smooth. I stayed still until she fell asleep on the couch. Then I lifted her gently, like I'd done 100 times, and carried her to bed. It felt like moving a stranger. Over the next few days, I made a plan the way I made plans at work, carefully, methodically, with attention to timing. I didn't do anything illegal. I didn't do anything impulsive. I started with a lawyer. I chose one through a referral, not through a frantic search. I booked a consultation on my lunch break and sat in a small office that smelled faintly of printer ink and lemon cleaner. The lawyer was a woman with calm eyes and a voice like measured steel. She listened to me explain the situation without interrupting, hands folded neatly on her desk. When I finished, she asked one question. Do you want reconciliation, she said, or do you want exit? Exit. The word felt like a door opening onto fresh air. I want exit, I said. She nodded, as if my answer had been expected. Then she began explaining, in steady detail, the practical steps I could take to protect myself, what I could document, what I could move, what I should not touch without legal guidance. She spoke about joint funds, about authorized user status, about credit exposure. Her tone was not vengeful. It was clinical. Which, oddly, felt comforting. When I left her office, I sat in my car for a few minutes with my hands on the steering wheel, breathing slowly. The world outside looked the same, people walking, traffic moving, sunlight falling across the street. But inside me, a decision had become solid. At home, I began collecting evidence the way you collect small valuables before a storm. Screenshots of bank transfers. Photos of credit statements. Copies of tax filings. Documentation of my contributions to rent, to utilities, to the shared life Harper had treated as her entitlement. I didn't take anything yet. I only prepared. Harper's departure date approached. She became brighter, lighter, as if the trip fed her energy before it even happened. She bought a new dress and held it up in front of the mirror. What do you think? She asked. It's beautiful, I said, and meant it in a detached way. The dress was beautiful. The situation was not. The night before she left, she kissed me longer than usual. I'm sorry, she whispered. I wish you could come. I looked at her face, the smoothness of her skin, the softness of her mouth, and I wondered how someone could lie so easily while sounding sincere. It's okay, I said. Have fun. The next morning, I helped her load her suitcase into the car that would take her to the airport. She hugged me tight in the lobby, pressing her cheek against mine so the neighbors could see, so anyone watching would think we were a normal couple, slightly sad about a travel mishap. I'll call you when I land, she said. Okay, I replied. She walked away without looking back. When the lobby door closed behind her, the air felt different, lighter, like the apartment itself had exhaled. I returned upstairs, stood in our living room, and let the quiet settle. Then I opened my laptop again. The lawyer had told me, timing matters. And Harper had just flown into a world where she believed I was still sitting here, waiting, still playing the role she'd assigned me. I wasn't going to shatter her illusion with confrontation. I was going to let the system speak. I started with the joint account. Legally, I could move my contributions into an individual account, as long as I documented it and didn't drain the account beyond what was reasonable. The lawyer's guidance echoed in my mind. Don't be dramatic. Be defensible. I documented every transfer with memo notes. So I transferred an amount that reflected what I had put in over the last year beyond Harper's contributions, enough to protect myself, not enough to look like theft. Then I called the credit card company and removed Harper as an authorized user from the cards in my name. It was a surprisingly calm conversation. The customer service representative asked for verification, typed, confirmed. "Done," she said. "Done." I pictured Harper in Kyoto, walking into a hotel with polished floors, expecting her card to glide through the payment terminal like it always did. I didn't smile. I simply felt the inevitability of consequence. Next, I secured my personal documents, passport, birth certificate, social security card, insurance papers. I placed them in a folder and put them in a bag. I packed essentials, clothes, a few books, the small framed photo of my father that had always sat on my desk. I didn't take furniture. I didn't take anything that would start a fight about property. I took myself. Then I walked through the apartment slowly, letting my eyes rest on each room. The way the light fell on the couch. The scuff mark on the baseboard near the kitchen. The plant Harper always forgot to water. I wasn't sad in the way I expected to be. I felt quiet, like the part of me that had been trying to keep this marriage afloat had finally laid down its tools. Before I left, I printed the screenshots of the group chat. I read the line again, "He won't make a scene." And I thought, with calm certainty, you're right. I won't. I placed the documents in a folder on the kitchen counter, neat, visible, impossible to miss. The lawyer's draft papers weren't ready yet, but the notice of intent, the separation paperwork, the first formal steps, those were. I taped a simple note to the folder. Harper. I saw the chat. I'm done. Anton. No anger. No pleading. Just truth. Then I walked out. I moved into a short-term rental on the other side of the city, a place with pale walls and minimal furniture and windows that looked out over a quiet street. It wasn't glamorous. It was clean. It was mine. That first night, I sat on the edge of the bed and listened to the silence. I expected loneliness to arrive like a wave. Instead, I felt something else, relief. As if my body had been carrying tension for years without admitting it. My phone buzzed at midnight. Harper. I watched it ring. I let it go to voicemail. Then another call. Then another. Finally, a text. Harper, Anton. Call me. My card isn't working and the hotel is saying there's a problem. I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I typed, slowly, carefully. Me, I'm safe. I've spoken to a lawyer. We'll communicate through them. Her response came fast. Harper, what are you doing? This is my brother's wedding. You're humiliating me. Humiliating. That word, from her, felt almost funny, not because it was amusing, but because it was revealing. She didn't say, I'm sorry. She didn't say, I lied. She said, you're humiliating me. As if my pain existed only as a reflection on her. I set the phone down. Outside, a car passed slowly, headlights sliding across the wall like a brief pale breath. I lay down and closed my eyes. My mind replayed scenes, not the dramatic ones, but the small ones. Harper laughing softly in the kitchen while I paid bills. Harper texting during dinners. Harper's family treating me like a polite outsider. The way I'd swallowed discomfort to keep peace. Peace, I realized, had never actually been peace. It had been my silence. The next day, I woke up early and made coffee in the rental's tiny kitchen. I drank it by the window, watching a dog walker move down the sidewalk at a leisurely pace. My phone buzzed again. Harper, Anton, please. We can talk when I get back. This is not the time. Not the time. As if the time was always when it suited her. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop and drafted an email to Harper's parents. Not dramatic. Not inflammatory. Just factual. I explained, calmly, that I had seen messages indicating I was intentionally excluded from the wedding trip, and that financial reliance had been misrepresented. I attached screenshots. I stated that I had initiated separation proceedings and would not be discussing it publicly beyond what was necessary. Then I sent a similar message to Sean, her brother, because he deserved to know what he'd participated in, whether knowingly or not. I didn't write to punish. I wrote to correct the narrative before Harper could twist it into something else. Because Harper always rewrites stories. They make themselves the victim of consequences. I watched the sent emails leave my outbox. Then I sat back and listened to the quiet again. And for the first time in a long time, I felt my own life beginning to belong to me. Harper's replies came in bursts after that, like someone throwing fists at a locked door. Harper, you emailed my parents? Harper, are you trying to ruin me? Harper, pick up. Now. Then, abruptly. Harper, please. That last one sat on my screen like a cracked dish, delicate, damaged, still trying to look whole. I didn't answer. Not because I enjoyed her panic. I didn't. But I'd spent years answering. Years of smoothing, explaining, absorbing. If I picked up now, it would become a familiar dance, her outrage, her tears, my apology for her choices. So I turned my phone face down and went back to watching the street. A full hour passed before a new message arrived, this one from Sean. Sean, Anton. I got your email. Can we talk? I stared at it for a long moment, then typed. Me, yes. Call me. When the phone rang, I answered on the second ring. Anton, Sean said, and his voice sounded strained, like someone who'd been forced to wear a suit 2 sizes too small. What? What is going on? I could hear ambient noise on his end, laughter, clinking glass, music faintly in the background. The wedding machine was still turning, even as the gears slipped. I'm going to tell you exactly what's going on, I said. And I'm not going to yell. But I'm not going to pretend, either. Sean exhaled. Okay. She intentionally didn't book my travel, I said. And she told you in the group chat she'd say it didn't go through. So I wouldn't come. There was a pause. A long one. Sean started. Don't, I said, still calm. Don't tell me you didn't know what that meant. You asked if she was sure. You knew. Sean's voice dropped. I thought she meant. I don't know. I thought maybe you couldn't get off work. Or maybe you didn't want to come. She said you'd been feeling awkward around everyone. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was predictable. She said it would avoid tension, I reminded him. That I get a certain way. Sean's silence shifted. Less confusion. More discomfort. She made it sound like she was protecting you, he said quietly. And protecting us. From what? I asked. From me existing? Anton. No, I said, my voice still even, but firmer now. Let's be honest. You weren't protecting anyone. You were letting her decide who counts as family. And she decided I don't. Sean swallowed audibly. Sakura is upset. She says you're trying to sabotage the wedding because you're hurt. I am hurt, I said. But I didn't sabotage anything. I removed my name from financial liabilities she's been leaning on. That's not sabotage. That's reality catching up. Another pause. Then Sean said something that surprised me. I didn't know she was using your money. I stared at the wall, the rental's pale paint suddenly interesting. You didn't know? I repeated. She told us you two were fine, Sean said. Like combined finances. Normal married stuff. It was combined, I said. But not balanced. Sean breathed out. Anton, I'm sorry. Those words, simple, late, did something inside me. Not healing. But acknowledgement. Like someone finally turning on a light in a room you've been stumbling through. Thank you, I said. But I'm not asking you to fix it. I'm just telling you, I'm done. And she's going to say whatever she needs to say to make herself the victim. Sean's voice tightened. She's freaking out. The hotel says her card was declined at check-in and they wouldn't release the room. She had to call Mom. They required a deposit at check-in. I pictured it, Harper, standing in a glossy lobby, suitcase beside her, smile cracking as she realized the ground under her wasn't solid anymore. Did your mother pay? I asked. Sean didn't answer immediately. Which meant yes. I'm not going to ask you to take sides, I said. But I am going to ask you to stop participating in lies. If she tells the family I abandoned her out of nowhere, you know that's not true. Sean's voice was weary. I know. Good, I said. That's all. We hung up, and I sat there with my coffee growing cold. My phone buzzed again, this time, from an unfamiliar number. I answered because something in my gut told me it mattered. Anton? A woman's voice asked. It's Diane Harrow. Harper's mother. Hello, I said. There was a brief pause where I could hear her gathering herself. I read your email, she said. And I saw the screenshots. Yes, I replied. I want to know if those messages are real, she said sharply. Because Harper is saying they were taken out of context. I took a breath. They're real, I said. And there's no context that makes them okay. Another pause. Then her tone softened, just slightly. You're saying she planned this? Diane said. Yes. And you're saying, her voice caught, that you're leaving her? I already did, I said. Silence. Then, unexpectedly, where are you? In a rental, I said. Safe. She exhaled, and it sounded like something in her had shifted. She's been calling me nonstop, Diane said. Crying. Saying you trapped her. Saying you set her up. I didn't respond. I let the quiet do the work. Diane continued, slower now. Anton. I don't approve of what she did. That was something. From Diane, approval was currency. She rarely spent it. She's always had a way, Diane said, as if she were speaking more to herself than to me, of making other people responsible for her choices. I closed my eyes briefly. Years of dinners, holidays, polite barbs, the subtle hierarchy, suddenly it all lined up into a clearer pattern. I'm sorry, Diane said again, this time with actual weight. I'm genuinely sorry. Thank you, I said. And Anton, she added, voice firm, I want you to know, I won't support her rewriting this. My chest tightened. Not with hope. With something like vindication, but quieter. I appreciate that, I said. We ended the call. I set the phone down and sat very still. I'd expected Harper to attempt damage control. I'd expected accusations. I'd expected emotional warfare. What I hadn't expected was the speed with which the truth began to spread once it existed in writing. Because lies thrive on isolation. They thrive when no one can compare notes. And I'd given people notes. That evening, Harper called again. I let it go to voicemail. Then she sent a voice memo. I didn't play it right away. I stared at it like it was a snake curled in my inbox. Eventually, I did press play. Her voice filled the room, and it was different than her texts. Softer. Wounded. Carefully trembling. Anton, she said, I don't understand why you're doing this. I know you're upset about the ticket thing, but this is extreme. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was trying to keep the peace. You know how my family is. You know how these events get. She sniffed. I'm stuck here, she continued. I'm embarrassed, and everyone is looking at me like I'm a monster. I can't even enjoy my brother's wedding. Are you happy now? Then her tone sharpened under the tears. You always do this, she said. You punish me instead of talking. You make everything so cold. You think you're better because you're logical. But you're just cruel. The memo ended. I sat there in the quiet, and I realized something. Even now, caught, exposed, she still framed herself as the injured party. She hadn't apologized for erasing me. She'd complained that consequences were inconvenient. I forwarded the memo to my lawyer. Not to humiliate her. Not to gloat. To document pattern. Over the next 2 days, I received a handful of messages from people I'd known through Harper, friends, cousins, even a former coworker of hers. Most were vague, careful. Hope you're okay. Heard things are messy. Let me know if you need anything. Then came one message that made me sit up straighter. It was from Jared, Harper's business partner. Jared, Anton, I'm reaching out because Harper is saying you froze company funds. Did you access accounts tied to her work? I stared at his message. Company funds. I hadn't touched anything that wasn't joint. I hadn't gone near her work accounts. But the fact that she was telling him that story, already building a narrative where she was the victim of financial abuse, told me exactly where this was headed. I replied immediately. I did not access any company accounts. I only removed her as an authorized user from personal credit accounts in my name and transferred documented personal contributions out of our joint account per legal advice. My attorney can confirm. Then, because I refused to leave him in uncertainty, I added. Harper intentionally excluded me from the Kyoto trip and told family it was easier if I don't come. I can share documentation if needed. Jared responded a minute later. Jared, please do. So I did, carefully. Screenshots, timestamps, nothing edited. The kind of evidence that doesn't shout. It just sits there and cannot be argued with. That night I slept better than I had in months. Not because I enjoyed the fallout. But because reality was finally holding its shape. 3 days later, Harper's location moved back across the map. She was coming home. I didn't know exactly when she'd arrive, only that I'd begin receiving notifications from airline apps connected to our old shared calendar. Harper had forgotten, in her panic, to remove me from the system she'd relied on. Her flight landed on a gray afternoon. At 6:12 p.m., my phone buzzed. Harper, I'm home. Where are you? I didn't answer. At 6:21 p.m. Harper, Anton, this is insane. Open the door. At 6:34 p.m. Harper, if you're trying to scare me, it worked. I'm scared. Now stop. I read the messages slowly, then set my phone down and called my lawyer. She answered on the second ring. She's back, I said. Do not meet her alone, my lawyer replied immediately. If she's at the apartment, let her be. We'll file tomorrow. I left papers, I said. And a note. Good, she said. If she escalates, call police. Not to punish, just to document. I don't want a scene, I said. My lawyer's voice remained calm. You don't control whether she makes one. You only control your response. That night, I didn't go back. I stayed in the rental, ate something simple, and sat at the small table by the window with my laptop open. At 9:08 p.m., a new message arrived. Harper, I found your note. You are seriously divorcing me over a plane ticket? And there it was, the final minimization. The attempt to reduce everything to one trivial detail. I finally answered, one message, short, precise. Me, not a plane ticket. A decision. A pattern. I saw the chat. A full minute passed. Then. Harper, you went through my phone? Me, yes. Harper, that is psychotic. Me, planning to erase your spouse is worse. She didn't respond for 20 minutes. I imagined her pacing through the apartment, rehearsing lines, calling her mother, trying to build a case. When she finally replied, it was exactly what I expected. "Harper, I was trying to protect you. You always feel insecure around my family and it ruins everything. I did what I had to do." I stared at the screen. Then I typed the last thing I would say to her directly for a long time. "Me, you didn't protect me. You protected your image. Good luck. Talk to my lawyer." After that, I blocked her number. Not as revenge. As a boundary. The next morning, my lawyer filed. And that afternoon, something remarkable happened. My body stopped bracing for impact. It was subtle at first, like realizing you'd been clenching your jaw without knowing it. Like noticing your shoulders could drop. The days that followed were a blur of practicalities, paperwork, property lists, account separation, slow unpacking of a shared life into individual terms. Harper attempted to fight at first, of course she did. She sent emails from new addresses. She left voicemails from unknown numbers. She tried to recruit mutual friends, tried to frame herself as abandoned. But each time she escalated, the documentation held. The screenshots held. The statements held. The truth held. And over time, she ran out of angles. Because you can't charm your way out of a timestamp. Weeks later, I returned to the apartment with a friend present to retrieve the last of my belongings. Harper wasn't there, either by legal agreement or by her own avoidance. I didn't care. The space looked different without my things. Or maybe it looked different because I was different. I walked into the kitchen and stared at the counter where I'd left the folder. The tape mark was still faintly visible, like a ghost outline of the moment everything changed. I thought, briefly, of Kyoto, the cherry blossom she'd used as an emoji in that group chat. How she'd planned her life like a curated photograph. And I realized, she hadn't just forgotten me. She had counted on my silence. She had counted on my willingness to swallow humiliation so she could keep peace. But peace built on erasure is not peace. It's a cage. I carried the last box to my car and drove back to my rental, where the street was quiet and ordinary and mine. That night, I sat by the window again. I watched lights blink on in other people's apartments, tiny domestic worlds continuing as they always had. I thought about the version of me who'd watched Harper walk away in the lobby, hugging her suitcase like she deserved a seamless life. I thought about the man on the couch, turning her phone over in his hands, searching for proof he didn't want to find. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt steady. Because the victory wasn't that her card declined in a hotel lobby. The victory wasn't that her family saw the screenshots. The victory was that I finally stopped begging to be included in a life that kept pushing me out. I didn't have cliffside dinners in Kyoto. I didn't have glossy wedding photos. I had a quiet room, a clean start, and the sharp clarity of a truth that no longer needed my permission to exist. And that, I realized, was enough. Harper didn't give up just because the truth had teeth. She rarely does. People like her rarely do. They don't surrender, they reframe. They don't apologize, they recast. They don't process consequences, they shop for loopholes. And Harper was a talented shopper. 2 days after I blocked her number, I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. Subject: "We need to talk like adults." It was from Harper. "Anton, you can't just disappear and blow up our marriage because you're embarrassed. I'm willing to forgive the phone invasion and meet you halfway. I've spoken to a mediator. If you don't respond within 48 hours, I'll have to protect myself." Harper. I read it twice. Not because it was confusing. Because it was so perfectly Harper that it almost felt like a parody. She was willing to forgive me. And there it was again, protect myself, the favorite phrase of people about to create damage and pretended self-defense. I forwarded it to my lawyer. My lawyer responded in 10 minutes, "Don't reply. We will." I took a long breath and watched the urge to engage rise and fall like a wave. The hardest part of leaving someone like Harper wasn't logistics. It wasn't paperwork. It was resisting the old muscle memory of explaining myself to someone who'd already decided my feelings were a nuisance. That evening, another email came, this one with a PDF attached. A proposed settlement, neatly formatted. It was almost laughable how quickly she'd switched from emotional appeals to legal theater, like a costume change. The proposal demanded, I keep paying half the rent for continuity, I cover her travel debt from Kyoto because the timing was unfair, and I acknowledge wrongdoing for accessing private communications. She wanted money, an apology, and a written confession that she could keep in her pocket like a dagger. I didn't laugh. I simply felt the cold confirmation that I hadn't misread her. I'd married someone who treated intimacy like a contract, and contracts like weapons. 2 mornings later, my rental's intercom buzzed. I wasn't expecting anyone. I walked to the panel and pressed the button. Hello? A pause. Then Harper's voice, carefully sweet. It's me. My stomach tightened instantly, as if my body recognized her before my mind could decide what to do. How did you get this address? I asked. Another pause, like she was choosing which lie would be easiest to wear. You didn't think I wouldn't find you, she said lightly, almost playful. I stared at the intercom, my finger hovering near the button. Harper, I said, you're not coming up. Her voice sharpened instantly. The sweetness fell away. So you're hiding now? I'm not hiding, I said. I'm separating. This is unbelievable, she snapped. You're acting like I cheated on you. You tried to erase me, I said. A beat? Then she laughed, one short, disbelieving sound, the kind people use when they want your reality to feel ridiculous. You're obsessed with that chat, she said. I said what I said because I was trying to keep things from blowing up. My brother's wedding was not the place for your insecurity. There it was, your insecurity. Always the same move. If my feelings were inconvenient, she labeled them as a flaw and used that label to justify her behavior. I pressed my forehead against the cool wall. Leave, I said. You're not going to talk to me? She demanded. Not without lawyers. She inhaled sharply, like she'd been slapped. I came here to fix this, she said, voice trembling with anger. I came here to be the bigger person. I almost said something sharp. Instead, I said something true. You didn't come to fix this, I told her. You came to get control back. Silence. Then her voice went very calm. You're going to regret this, she said. And the line went dead. I stood there for a moment with my hand still on the intercom button. Then I did exactly what my lawyer told me to do. I documented it. Time. Date. What was said. Not because I wanted to punish her. Because I refused to be caught unprepared in the story she was already writing. Over the next week, I saw the narrative shift in real time. A mutual friend, Marin, texted me. Marin, Harper says you emptied the accounts and left her stranded overseas. Is that true? I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I replied with facts. Me, not true. I transferred documented contributions per legal advice and removed her as authorized user on my cards. She had her own funds and family support. I have records. Marin didn't respond immediately. When she did, it was only. Marin, oh. That O was heavier than paragraphs. Then came another message, from someone I barely knew, a cousin of Harper's. Cousin, wow. Didn't know you were that kind of guy. I didn't reply. Not because I couldn't defend myself. Because I didn't need to argue with someone holding a story they liked. The people who mattered, the ones who asked questions instead of making accusations, those were the only ones I answered. And as the days passed, I noticed something I hadn't expected. The more Harper tried to smear me, the more people quietly backed away from her. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just distance. Because when someone tries too hard to convince you they're the victim, eventually you start wondering what they're hiding. My lawyer arranged mediation for a Thursday morning. Neutral office. Neutral walls. Neutral water bottles that looked like props. Harper arrived in a cream blazer, hair perfect, makeup understated. She looked like a woman auditioning for the role of reasonable spouse. When she saw me, her eyes flashed, anger disguised as surprise. Then she smiled. "Hi," she said, like we were colleagues. I nodded once, politely. Nothing more. We sat. The mediator, a gray-haired man with a calm voice, explained the rules. He wanted respect, order, honesty. Harper nodded at the right moments. Then she began. "I'm devastated," she said, voice soft. "I don't recognize him anymore. He's become punitive. Punitive." I watched her hands as she spoke. Perfect nails. Rings catching light. "I made a mistake," she continued. "The travel situation got messy. I admit that." But Anton's reaction. It's like he was waiting for an excuse to leave. She looked at me then, eyes shining with controlled emotion. "Is that true?" the mediator asked. I didn't answer immediately. I waited until I felt my voice settle. "No," I said. "I wasn't waiting to leave. I was waiting to be treated like a partner." Harper's mouth tightened. A micro-expression, barely there, of irritation that the script wasn't going as planned. "The travel didn't get messy," I continued. "She planned to exclude me. I saw the messages. She told her family she'd lie to me and say the booking didn't go through." The mediator turned toward Harper. "Did you write those messages?" he asked. Harper sighed, the way someone sighs when they're forced to address a childish misunderstanding. "I wrote them," she admitted. "But Anton is exaggerating what they meant. It was a private chat. I was venting. Everyone vents." I held my gaze steady. "You weren't venting," I said. "You were coordinating. And you were confident I'd accept it." Harper's eyes flashed again. Then she leaned forward slightly and delivered her next move, her final boss tactic. "You violated my privacy," she said, voice firmer now. "You broke trust. You went through my phone while I was sleeping. That's abusive. Abusive." The word hung in the air like smoke. The mediator shifted uncomfortably. Harper pressed on, sensing an opening. "I didn't feel safe," she said. "When I got back from Kyoto, I realized I might need legal protection." My lawyer's pen moved quietly over paper. I felt a slow heat rise in my chest, not rage, but the old instinct to defend myself from accusation. Then I remembered. Harper weaponizes emotion the way others weaponize knives. So I did the only thing that works against someone like her. I stayed factual. "I accessed her phone because she told me my ticket didn't go through," I said. I suspected she was lying. She was. I found proof. I left. I did not threaten her. I did not touch her. I did not contact her except through legal channels after that. The mediator looked at me. "Do you have evidence of the planning?" he asked. My lawyer slid a packet across the table, screenshots with timestamps, printed cleanly. Harper's face changed. Not dramatically. Just enough. Her smile faltered like a light flickering. The mediator read quietly for a moment. Then he looked up at Harper. "These messages," he said carefully, "do appear coordinated." Harper's jaw tightened. She reached for a tissue, dabbed her eye as if she were delicate porcelain. "That doesn't mean he can ruin my life," she said softly. I finally spoke the sentence that had been building in me for weeks. "I didn't ruin your life," I said. "I stopped funding it." Silence. The mediator cleared his throat. "Let's move to financial separation," he said quickly. Because even he could feel the truth land. Here's what Harper hadn't anticipated. I didn't want her to suffer. I wanted her to stop having access to me. So my lawyer proposed a settlement that was fair, clean, and unromantic. Separate accounts. Equitable division based on documented contributions. No ongoing spousal support beyond what was legally appropriate, and there wasn't much basis for it. A no-contact boundary except through counsel. Harper tried to bargain. She tried sweetness first. "Anton, we could still fix this," she murmured during a break, as we passed in the hallway. I didn't stop walking. Then she tried venom. "You think you're so righteous," she hissed under her breath. "You think you're the hero." I turned slightly, not to engage, but to end. "No," I said quietly. "I'm the guy you underestimated." And I kept walking. By the end of the day, the settlement wasn't fully signed, but the direction was clear. Harper could posture. She could perform. But she couldn't argue with receipts. She couldn't outspin a timestamp. She couldn't charm her way past documented reality. And the best part, the part that felt like a victory without cruelty, was this. I didn't have to attack her. I only had to stop cooperating with her version of me. That night, I went back to the rental and opened the window. Cool air drifted in. The city sounded distant and indifferent, the way it does when your personal catastrophe doesn't make the news. I sat on the floor with my back against the wall and listened to my own breathing. For weeks, I'd been living in a controlled burn, paperwork, calls, planning. Now, for the first time, I let myself feel the ache underneath it all. Not for Harper. For the years I'd spent trying to earn basic respect. For the holidays I'd endured where I was treated like a polite guest in my own marriage. For the way I'd trained myself not to need too much. I closed my eyes and pictured that group chat again, the little airplane emoji, the cherry blossoms, the casual cruelty of "he won't make a scene." They were right. I didn't make a scene. I made a decision. And decisions, unlike scenes, don't fade when the music stops. Harper's last stunt didn't come with tears or threats. It came with audience. Because when private manipulation stops working, people like her don't suddenly grow a conscience, they go public. They look for a stage big enough to make you panic. They want you to respond emotionally so they can point at your reaction and say, "See? This is what I deal with." Harper didn't want reconciliation. She wanted control. And the fastest way to reclaim control was to force me to perform. It started on a Sunday. I was in the rental, barefoot, stirring something simple on the stove, eggs, maybe, when my phone lit up with notifications. Not texts. Not emails. Tags. Mentions. A mutual friend had posted a photo from a dinner, and beneath it someone had commented, "Hope you're okay after what happened. Some men are truly disgusting." Then another. Then another. My stomach tightened. I didn't click anything yet. I went to my laptop, logged into the social account I rarely used anymore, and typed Harper's name into the search bar. Her profile was public. She'd posted a long message, carefully written, carefully vague. The kind of post that doesn't name you but leaves your outline clear enough for strangers to throw stones. Caption. I didn't think I'd ever have to write something like this, but I'm learning that silence protects the wrong people. I scrolled. Sometimes the person you build a life with is not who you think they are. Sometimes they wait until you're away, until you're vulnerable, then they take everything and punish you for trying to keep peace. I've been accused of things that are wildly untrue. My privacy was violated. My finances were sabotaged. And when I came home, I found emptiness where my life used to be. I could practically hear her voice in the punctuation. And then, I'm not naming names. If you know, you know. But I'm asking the people who care about me to stop giving someone like that access to our community. Community. She meant, the social circle I curated. The comments were already stacking up, heart emojis, rage, Sympathy, strangers praising her strength, people talking about narcissists and financial abuse like they were tasting new words. Then I saw something colder. A comment from Sakura. Truth always comes out. Proud of you, red heart emoji. And beneath it, Sean's silence, no comment, no defense. Just absence. Harper had done it, she'd set the story loose in public, where facts don't matter as much as emotion. She wanted me to react. She wanted me to comment. To argue. To expose the screenshots in the comments like a man making a scene. Because then she could say, look how cruel. Look how vindictive. Look how obsessed. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. For 3 seconds, I felt the old urge. Correct the record. Defend yourself. Explain. Then I remembered the sentence that had saved me at mediation. People like Harper don't want conversation. They want leverage. So I didn't respond online. I didn't like the post. I didn't message her. I did something far more dangerous to someone like Harper. I let her perform to an empty stage. And then I sent the post to my lawyer. My lawyer replied with one line. Good. She just documented defamation. Don't engage. Defamation. The word landed like a quiet key turning in a lock. If social media was the stage, the next move was the trapdoor. 2 days after her post, I walked into a cafe near my rental, small place, warm smell of bread, quiet jazz. I'd been there twice. No one knew me. Or so I thought. I just stepped in line when I heard my name, soft, surprised, as if the universe had arranged a coincidence. Anton? I turned. Harper stood there in a pale coat with a scarf looped around her neck like a fashion ad. Her hair was perfect. Her eyes were slightly red, like she'd practiced in a mirror how grief should look. Beside her was Marin, the friend who'd texted me earlier. Maran's face tightened when she saw my expression, like she suddenly realized she'd been used as a prop. Oh my God, Harper whispered, hand rising to her chest. I didn't know you'd be here. Of course she did. There were 1,000 cafes. She'd chosen this one. And she'd brought a witness. My heart didn't race. It slowed, like my body was slipping into that same cold focus I'd found on the night of the group chat. I gave her a neutral nod. Harper, I said. Her eyes glistened. Can we talk? Just 2 minutes. No, I said, calmly. Marin blinked. Anton. I looked at Marin, not unkindly. She posted about me publicly. If she wants to communicate, she can do it through counsel. Harper's mouth trembled. So that's it? You're just stone? Stone. That was her new favorite insult. Cold. Logical. Cruel. It was funny, she couldn't understand that my calm wasn't cruelty. It was survival. She took a step closer. You took my life and you're acting like you're the victim. I didn't move. I lowered my voice so only they could hear. I didn't take your life, I said. I took mine back. Her nostrils flared, barely, but her face remained fragile for the audience. You're really doing this, she whispered, then turned to Marin with trembling outrage. This is what I've been saying. Marin looked between us, caught in the uncomfortable space between narrative and reality. I could have ended it right there by showing Marin the screenshots. By pulling out the proof and letting the world see Harper's private coordination. But I didn't. Because I wasn't trying to destroy her. I was trying to leave. So I did the cleanest thing possible. I stepped out of line, walked to the counter, and told the barista, actually, I'm going to go. Then I walked toward the door. Behind me, Harper's voice rose, not screaming but sharpened. Of course you run, she said. That's what you do. I didn't turn around. I just left. Outside, the air was cold enough to clear my head. My hands were steady. I pulled out my phone, opened my notes app, and documented. Date. Time. Location. Witness. Exact phrases. Then I texted my lawyer. She engineered an encounter. I didn't engage. My lawyer replied, "Perfect. Perfect." It's a strange thing, to have your own restraint become strategy. Harper had one problem now. The people she'd wanted to rally, our acquaintances, weren't giving her the payoff she expected. Some commented on her post, sure. But privately, people were asking questions. Because her story had gaps. If she was truly blindsided, why had there been no travel confirmation for me? Why had she claimed the booking didn't go through like it was a technical glitch? Why did she refuse to show receipts? And then, quietly, Diane, her mother, stopped playing along. The first crack appeared when Diane sent me an email. Subject: Inventory plus documents. It was brief, almost formal. Anton. Harper is attempting to remove items from the apartment that were purchased by you. I'm not getting involved emotionally, but I'm telling you this because it's right. If you need to retrieve anything, do it through legal channels. Diane. I stared at it for a long time. Even Diane had reached her limit. But Harper wasn't finished. 2 days later, I got another email. From Jared, her business partner. Subject: Urgent. Anton. Harper is telling vendors you tampered with her accounts and she's requesting access to shared passwords for continuity. I'm refusing, but she's escalating. If you have documentation, I need it, because she's implying legal action against me if I don't comply. That's when it clicked. The public post wasn't the main attack. It was the smoke. The real fire was elsewhere. She was trying to salvage control by stealing access to systems, to money flows, to professional identity. And she was doing it the way she did everything. By painting herself as a victim who needed what wasn't hers. I forwarded Jared's email to my lawyer. Then my lawyer asked me one question. Do you want to end this quickly, she said, or do you want to end it cleanly? I thought about Harper's post. About the cafe encounter. About her threats. Cleanly, I said. My lawyer paused. Cleanly means we stop letting her behave like this without consequence. I swallowed. Then do it. My lawyer drafted a formal cease and desist letter, precise, unemotional, devastating. It stated, Harper had published defamatory statements implying financial sabotage and abuse. She had attempted unauthorized access to systems not legally hers. She had created a pattern of harassment via direct contact attempts after being told not to. Any further public claims would trigger legal escalation. Attached were exhibits, the travel chat screenshots. Bank records showing what was moved, when, and why. Documentation of her attempt to obtain passwords through vendors. The timeline of her contact attempts. I didn't write it. That was the beauty of it. The letter wasn't written by an angry spouse. It was written by the world's least emotional creature, the law. The letter went to Harper. It also went to her attorney, because yes, she had one now. A week passed. No new posts. No new tags. No accidental encounters. The noise stopped so abruptly that it felt like walking out of a loud bar into a quiet street. Then, on a Friday afternoon, my lawyer called. Her attorney is requesting a revised settlement, she said. I said nothing. She wants to sign, my lawyer continued, but she's asking for one condition. I felt my stomach tighten. What condition? My lawyer's voice was almost amused. She wants a mutual non-disparagement clause, she said. Meaning neither of you can publicly speak badly about the other. I blinked. Of course she did. She wasn't asking for closure. She was asking for insurance. If she couldn't control the narrative, she wanted to muzzle both of us so the truth couldn't be spoken later. My lawyer waited. I thought about the screenshots. The receipts. The way she'd tried to label me abusive to cover her own behavior. And I realized something: Harper didn't fear divorce. She feared exposure. At it, I said. My lawyer paused. Are you sure? Yes, I said. I don't want to talk about her ever again. That was the final blow. Because someone like Harper expects you to want revenge. When you refuse revenge, when you refuse engagement, when you refuse to orbit them at all, what's left for them? Nothing. Just themselves. Months later, the divorce was finalized. It wasn't dramatic. No courtroom spectacle. No screaming in hallways. Just signatures, dates, and a life separated like clean seams. I moved into a small place of my own, sunlight in the mornings, a quiet street, a bedroom that didn't feel like a stage. I bought one new chair. Nothing fancy. Comfortable. Mine. I started cooking again, slowly, as if learning how to feed myself emotionally, not just physically. And I noticed, over time, that my body stopped flinching at the sound of notifications. One evening, as I was walking home with groceries, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I didn't open it right away. I carried my bags upstairs, unlocked my door, set everything down, washed my hands. Then I looked. It was short. Harper, I hope you're happy. I stared at it for a long time. Then I did the most ruthless thing possible. I deleted it. No reply. No acknowledgement. No hook for her to hang a story on. Because the truth was, I wasn't happy like a movie ending. I wasn't dancing in the street. I was something better than happy. I was free. Free from being managed. Free from being minimized. Free from a woman who could lie with a kiss and call it peace. And in that quiet freedom, I finally understood the simplest lesson of all. She tried to humiliate me by excluding me from a wedding. But what she really did, without meaning to, was show me exactly how little I mattered to her. And that knowledge didn't break me. It released me. I didn't rebuild in a cinematic way. There was no new me montage. No dramatic haircut. No sudden glow up where strangers turned to watch me walk down the street. Rebuilding was quieter than that. It was the first morning I woke up and realized my stomach wasn't tight. It was the first grocery run where I didn't calculate what Harper would criticize me for buying. It was the first time I sat in silence and didn't feel like I had to fill it with something pleasing, something performative, something that made my life look right. I started small, because small is what lasts. I kept my rental for a few more weeks, then moved into a modest one-bedroom with windows that faced east. The first sunrise there surprised me. It spilled through the curtains like it had always been waiting for me to stop living someone else's schedule. The apartment was plain. Clean. Mine. I bought a single plant, a pothos, easy to keep alive. I placed it on the windowsill and smiled when it didn't droop. Something about that felt symbolic. If I gave even minimal care to something, it stayed. That was new. I set up routines the way you set up scaffolding around a building, not because the scaffolding is beautiful, but because it helps the structure stand while it's under construction. Monday night, laundry. Wednesday, groceries. Saturday morning, a long walk with no destination. I started cooking again. Real cooking, not survival meals eaten over the sink while Harper scrolled her phone at the table. I learned I liked garlic more than I'd admitted. I learned that I missed music while I cooked. I learned that I'd been making myself smaller in 1,000 tiny ways that were so normal I didn't notice them. The strangest part was how my body kept expecting Harper to appear. Sometimes I'd reach for my phone to tell her something meaningless, a good coffee place I'd found, a funny sign on the street, then remember there was no one on the other end who would receive it with warmth. Only someone who would turn it into a critique or a tool. So I stopped reaching. And slowly, my hands learned a new habit, holding my own life without offering it up for approval. A few months after everything finalized, I attended a friend of a friend birthday dinner. I almost didn't go. My instinct was still to stay quiet, stay home, Stay invisible. But a part of me, some stubborn new seed, wanted to test whether I could exist in a room without performing. The dinner was simple, long table, warm lights, people laughing in that loose way that happens when no one is trying to impress anyone. Halfway through the night, a woman across the table leaned toward me. Her name was Noor. She had kind eyes and a voice that sounded like calm truth. "You're quieter than everyone else," she said, not accusing, just observing. "But you're not absent?" I blinked. "Is that good or bad?" Noor smiled. "It's just noticeable. Like you're listening for something." I almost laughed, because she wasn't wrong. For years, I'd listened for the next shift in Harper's mood, the next moment I'd need to manage. "I used to be married," I said, offering a small truth without spilling the whole story. Noor nodded like she'd expected that answer. "How long?" 5 years, I said. "And are you okay?" she asked. That question, asked plainly, no gossip, no agenda, hit me harder than I expected. I stared at my glass for a second. "I'm better," I said honestly. I didn't realize how much of me I'd been editing. Noor's expression softened. "Editing yourself is exhausting." I swallowed. "Yes," I said. "It was." She didn't push for details. She didn't try to diagnose Harper or label me. She just nodded, as if she understood the whole thing without needing the story. And in that moment, I felt something click into place. I didn't miss Harper. I missed the idea that love could be safe. And now, for the first time, safety felt possible again. It happened in the most ordinary setting. A week later, my friend Marin, the same friend who'd been dragged into the cafe encounter, asked me to grab coffee. I almost said no. But she'd been one of the few who'd texted questions instead of accusations, and that mattered. We sat outside at a small table. The wind lifted napkins at the corners. The street smelled like rain and baked bread. Marin wrapped her hands around her cup and looked at me. "I owe you an apology," she said. I didn't answer right away. "I didn't realize," she continued. "I thought. When she posted, I thought you'd done something horrible. And then I started noticing how she talks. How everything is always someone else's fault." I nodded once. "It's okay." "No," Marin said firmly. "It's not okay. I let her use me as a prop. I'm sorry." "Thank you," I said quietly. "That means something." Marin hesitated, then asked the question people always ask when they think they're being gentle. "Do you miss her?" The air between us went still. I could have answered with something clean and socially acceptable. I could have said, "Sometimes," and let nostalgia soften the edges. I could have said, "I miss what we had," and made her comfortable. But I realized I didn't want comfort. I wanted truth. I took a slow breath. "I miss the version of myself I thought I could be with her," I said. "The patient one. The loyal one. The one who believed love meant enduring anything." Maran's eyes flickered. "But," I continued, voice steady, "I don't miss her." Marin didn't speak. "I don't miss being minimized," I said. "I don't miss being treated like a problem to manage. I don't miss the way she could erase me and then call it keeping peace." I looked down at my hands and saw they weren't shaking. "I used to think leaving meant losing," I said. "But leaving her wasn't a loss." I lifted my gaze to Marin. It was the moment I finally stopped disappearing. Maran's throat moved as if she swallowed something difficult. "I get it," she whispered. I nodded. And in that moment, I felt the last door close, not with anger, not with drama, just with quiet finality. Because the end of that marriage wasn't a cliffhanger. It was a release. That night, back in my apartment, I opened the window and let cold air fill the room. The pothos on the windowsill stirred slightly in the breeze. I stood there for a long time, listening to the city hum, cars in the distance, someone laughing somewhere below, the sound of a normal world continuing. And I thought about the day Harper told me my ticket didn't go through. I'd believed the humiliation was being left behind. But the real humiliation had been something else entirely. It was how long I'd accepted being treated like I was optional. Now, I wasn't optional in my own life. Now, I was the one choosing. I turned off the lights, climbed into bed, and for the first time in years, I fell asleep without bracing for someone else's mood. Not happy. Not triumphant. Just calm. And calm, I learned, was the beginning of everything. If you've ever been accidentally left out on purpose, subscribe, and comment I see you so you know you're not alone.